Hello and welcome to the complete course of Azure Machine Learning. Now we will see how to create a compute target. So here we are going to deploy our model into a ACI web service, right? So we can also do it into an AKS. However, since it is a free account and it would require a lot of computation, so we are going ahead with the ACI web service. However, the process of both are same, right? So now let's get started. I need to import few libraries. What you need to have from Azure ML dot core dot web service, then import ACI web service. Correct. Now when it is in, so just create a config and call this ACI web service. Just do the deploy. So here we have a deploy configuration, and you need to mention how many CPUs or the memory GB would be required for your config for your prediction. So I'll just take it as a minimum CPU core. I am just putting as one because I have a very less data, and the memory GB I am also putting as one, and then execute it. Oh, it's got executed, right? So once it got executed, what I'll do it, I need to deploy a model. So how do I deploy the model? So what I need to do it, I'll just call my model, model equals to model, the workspace, and on which particular the name of a model I have saved it. If you'll go back, you can see I have registered the model with the name of diabetic model demo, right? You remember? So now we will use this particular model and just if I know this name, I will just call this particular model which has been registered and just invoke this model. So once it is invoked, my model uh, instance will get created, right? Wow, it's got created. Now the final step is to deploy the model. And so let's get started. So, oh, so here deploy equals to model dot deploy. It's very simple. And then we will give the workspace, will give the endpoint name where on which part what would be the name of your endpoint, right? So I'll say core prediction demo. You can give any name. This is what I have just think of, so that's why I have given this. And the another thing is models. So if you see the models here, you can give the model and the inference config, right? What is inference config? The config wherein you have place your score.py script, right? You have created the configuration over here. You just need to pass this configuration here so that my Azure machine would know that what script it needs to be executed while deploying it, right? So once that is done, now another point is a deployment configuration. So what is deployment configuration? Deployment configuration is what kind of an environment is required. It is a AKS environment or a single Azure container instance. So for me, it is a single container instance, Azure container instance. So I'll just keep this, what all the configuration we have mentioned. And the final thing is the deployment target. So deployment target is nothing, the environment which we have created at a start. You remember? So here, what this environment wherein we have just placed the scikit-learn and we have also installed the Azure SDK. So because this will convert it into a Docker image and it will install all this libraries, so we need to give this environment name over here, right? And then execute this statement. So here, if I'll go to the portal and click on the endpoint, you can see there is no endpoint which we have deployed it currently. So now this script is executed. I'll just do the refresh and see whether the endpoint has been created or not. So it takes few seconds to load, and wow, my endpoint is mentioned over here, right? This is the name which I have created the endpoint, correct? So now let's see what's the status. So the status of my deployment state is transitioning. So currently it is trying to deploy the image and try to create an image into an Azure machine learning, right? So there are following stages. Here also we have a transitioning, completed, fair, a healthy, and the failed. So if it is unhealthy, this means your deployment is success and you can consume this endpoint. So let's wait for some time to convert or to see whether my deployment is failed or it would be in a healthy state, right? And finally, the deployment state is shown over here is healthy. Now it's in a ready state wherein you can consume the URL, right? So if you'll see over here, this is a REST endpoint. If you want to consume it to the REST point, you can consume it by using this particular URL. You can also see the deployment log here. And now coming up to this transition state, the deployment state, I just wanted to show you from the Microsoft documents. There are five web service state. One is a transitioning, which means that a process of deployment is in process, right? So it is not a final state, right? Now, if it is an unhealthy state, this means the service has deployed it, but it is currently unreachable because of certain problems. So it is also not a final state. When it would be unschedulable, this means that a service cannot be deployed at this time because the resource is not available. So whatever the clusters or a compute target you have created, that is, and if it is from the shared pool, then the cluster is not ready and it would be unschedulable. The failed, if the service has failed to deploy due to an error or crash, then it would be at a final state. This means that whatever the endpoint you have created, it got failed and you cannot consume this service. And finally, if you see the healthy service, the service is healthy and the endpoint is available and you can consume it. So in the next chapter, we will see how to consume or how to do a prediction, right? So let's get started with the next chapter. Thank you.